Hello. Happy Thursday, right? So we're at the week. Thursday as I'm recording this. Happy Thursday to you. Welcome to part 7 and our super in-depth look at the rules and regulations and mechanics for Errant RPG. I think this might be the last one. I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty, as it were. I don't have any programming notes to share. I don't think. If they come to me later, I'll show them. So let's just get down to it and move that. And there's a way to make myself smaller. Anyway, I don't know. I'm back in Melon, so let me know if there's any issues with the stream in any way, because I'm giving it a shot. So far, it's been pretty good. I'll have some different things to throw at it later on besides these, which I think are fairly easy for these kinds of browser-based applications to handle, but we shall see. It hasn't really, other than one time or a couple times where the camera got reset, it's been pretty smooth, so I'm happy with that. Happy with that very much. All right, we're on to Downtime. We've been in Downtime. Let's see, we ended, I believe, yesterday. We had looked at crafting. Now we're on to supernatural, specifically starting out with complications. If the event dice for a downtime turn, call for a complication or a trend, roll in the appropriate table below. Feel free to substitute results for ones more appropriate to your setting. And we have a list of 2d6 for complications. Things like natural disasters, ongoing continuing disasters, assassinations, new threats, setbacks, legal claims, that kind of stuff. A trend is a separate table. 2d4, and these can be, I think, did we look at this? I kind of feel like we did look at this. Never mind. Am I losing my mind here? Maybe we're on the mundane. For some reason, I thought we hadn't covered it, but then I'm looking at those tables. I'm like, yeah, we did cover this yesterday. So, rewind time. We're starting off with legal trials. Ooh, still part of downtime. In the case that legal disputes are resolved via trial before a judge, jury, or similar, rather than some other method such as by combat or feline. Combat or feline? Is that a typo or is that another? I know last time I learned several words. Okay, so yeah, it is referring to cats. So I'm not sure what feline means in this context, but let's see. The following procedure may be used. When a case is brought before the party, make a reaction roll. Or if the offended party is a faction the errants have a reputation with, the reputation score of the errant with the highest, such with the said faction, modified based on available evidence, severity of the crime, bribes made to the court, jurists or retainers, and so on. The sum total of these modifiers should not exceed plus or minus 3. From this point, run the legal trial as a negotiation as normal. If an errant wishes to bring a legal case to bear on someone else, they may do so as a downtime action. To do so, they roll 2d6 plus the amount of jurists on retainer and any other relevant modifiers, though not exceeding plus or minus 3 in total. And then we get some rolls, similar 2d6 table to what we've seen in previous sections. You want a 10 plus for a success. 7 to 9 is something mixed. In this case, you might need to gather further evidence or take further action before you can get it further. And if you don't crack 7, aka you are 6 or lower, your case fails. Your Honor, may I object? I think having a legal trial is something that doesn't get a lot of love in fantasy games. I think people tend to just go with summary judgments or trial by combat. It's kind of cool. I mean, I like a sort of I guess myself, I like a mix, because I do think trial by combat or trial by whatever or Gaius and all those things are fun, but I think having real law and order in a way that people, having law and order as systems, both in the game and potentially, in this case, mechanically, that the players can, I don't want to say trust, because in the world, maybe they can't trust the judge, the crooked judge, whatever. What I mean by is that they feel like they're there. I think often, and people have definitely seen this, I think, when they've looked at players who have, or games we have a lot of kind of murder hobos and things like that people don't necessarily take the law seriously. And at the same time, you have GMs who kind of greatly will inflate or exaggerate the scope of the law or the reach of the law or anything like that. So having something like this where you can say, okay, we're going to have this trial and it's going to follow certain rules, encourages you to use it. I think if you have the tool in your toolbox, you're going to tend to use it. Whereas if you don't, you're just going to say, the Duke's men pick you up and just throw you in jail, kind of thing, right? And at the same time, with the players, you're aware of, okay, there is law, there are trials and things. So if I do something bad, there is a potential this stuff could happen to me. So maybe that puts a little pause in my head in terms of it's given me a little bit, not directly saying don't break the law, but it is letting you know the law is there. Then nothing says very cynical. The truth of the matter has no impact on how likely you are to win a legal trial. That is very cynical. It also, I suppose, depending on your point of view, is true. But the other thing I would say is that we're playing a fantasy kind of game, so I'm happy to give the truth a little bit more sway. It's really about you as a GM, and I guess your players too, right? How do you see this kind of world? Do you want to make the world a little bit more idealistic? In which case, it may mean something more, or do you want to make it more on the Game of Thrones side, where you are totally cynical? And that stuff is, you want to highlight that, the world is unfair and you're going to be screwed. Is that something you want to say about your world? It's kind of up to you. Hey, Cockatrice Nugget says, ooh, caught you live. You did catch me live. Happy to have you here. A scholar with relevant training investigating the subject of your query can be hired to conduct investigations, making investigation attempts in lieu of an errant. All right, so you can hire. You wanted to know why you might want to hire a scholar. That is one. A scholar can investigate stuff. I'm guessing that's at the bottom of the stuff I skipped over investigations. I thought I had just rolled past trials, but I'd rolled past investigations. So let me scroll back up. Investigations. The long-term gathering of information, whether that be researching esoteric tomes, gathering rumors from a whispered network, or spying on a duke, is handled via investigations. To start an investigation, an errant requires a source, whether this be access to a vast library, a coalition of friendly street urchins, or an agent disguised at court. The errant then formulates a query which an investigation into the source can answer. The guide sets a tracker for how many successful attempts will be required to answer the query completely. Each successful attempt reveals a portion of information that answers the query, with each success revealing deeper information until the final success closes off the answer. Making an investigation attempt is a downtime action. To do so, an errant rolls 2d6. Having additional corroboratory sources of information, as well as sages and spies on retainer if their expertise is applicable, adds +1 to the roll to a max of +3. Poor sources of information can impose a penalty to the roll to a maximum of -3. And then, I'm not going to go through another 2d6 table, but we're basically rolling these 2d6s. Same, there's success, there's kind of mixed, partial success, partial failure, and then just failure. And then we get the bit that I read mistakenly at the front saying that, hey, if you have a scholar, you can send them off to investigate instead of you. So I think another just reinforcement in the rules about, hey, why would I want hirelings, or why would I want, hirelings? I always just use hirelings and retainers basically interchangeably, but then sometimes I think of retainers as the ones with class levels and hirelings without. Basically, why would I hire people who don't go adventure with me, or they don't have usage in the wilderness or in dungeons? It's because they could do stuff like this. You can hire scholars to be behind, or while you want to do something with your downtime action, then you have your scholar that can do this other thing, and you can basically kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So I like that. Now we get to proclamations. If an errant wishes to spread information of some sort, whether it be disseminating false rumors or championing their glorious deeds, it can be handled by making a proclamation. 2 components must be specified: the contents of the proclamation and who the intended recipients of the proclamation are. Based on the difficulty of having the target receive the information, the guide sets a tracker for how long the proclamation will take to reach them. Having a proclamation reach almost everyone in a city, a tier 4 settlement, would take 4 successes. Having a proclamation reach the ear of the monarch of the nation may take 6 successes if the errant is a lowly gutter-born thief, or 1 success if they are an exultant with the ear of the court. Each success means the proclamation spreads closer to your target, with intermediaries on the information chain being made aware of it. Making a proclamation attempt is a downtime action. To do so, an errant rolls 2d6. Each definite article of proof substantiating the proclamation adds +1 to the roll, as does each bard on retainer to a maximum of +3. Unsubstantiated, exaggerated, or false claims may impose penalties on the roll to a maximum of -3. So, similar type stuff in terms of making the rolls. I like this. My players would definitely have benefited from having an actual mechanic for proclamations, as they were, I think they put a pause on their program, but they were trying to spread the word about their own good deeds. It kind of bit them in the butt a little bit, because one consequence of spreading word of your own deeds is you are spreading word about yourself. And then when things kind of turned south, there was a lot of people who knew, oh yeah, they're from this town. This is where they stay. This is what they're doing. Go here if you'd like your vengeance or whatever it is, because yeah, they've been telling everybody where to find them. So think carefully before you start telling everybody about yourself. So that was stuff under mundane. We'll go to bonds. Release my bonds. We get relationships. An errant's relationship with an NPC is described by their relationship score. This score can be adjusted freely by the guide at any time based on the interactions between the errant and the NPC. Once a relationship score has been set, the disposition of that NPC in an encounter will be set at the relationship score between them and the errant in the company with whom their score is either highest or lowest at the guide's discretion. And we're going to get basically a score is going to be between 2 and 12. Low is bad, so if it's 2, you're bitter foes. 3 to 5 enemies, 6 to 8 strangers, 9 your acquaintances, 10 associates, 11 friends, and 12 confidants. Acquaintances will perform small and costless courtesies. Associates will perform minor favors at a cost. Friends will perform major favors at a cost. And if the NPC belongs to a faction and they have enough pull, the errant gains a little bit of reputation bump with that faction. And then confidants will undertake great sacrifices at a cost, and you get an extra bump to your reputation with the faction that the NPC belongs to, assuming they have some pull in that faction. If utilizing the relationship for a favor comes at a cost, the NPC will perform that favor, but it will either lower their relationship score with that errant by 1, or the errant must provide some commensurate service to the NPC. An NPC will do any favors below the type which comes at a cost freely. E.g., an NPC whom an errant is friends with will do minor favors freely within reason. An errant can also attempt to change their relationship score with an NPC as a downtime action. To do so, they must specify whether they wish to move their score up or down and how they are doing so. To progress to either extreme of a relationship will require progressively more significant actions. Then they roll 2d6 with the guide applying any relevant modifiers, though not exceeding plus or minus 3, and same kind of 2d6 table. You usually want a 10 plus, right? I say you always want a 10 plus. Don't want a 6 or lower. 7 or 9 is mixed in terms of results. Reputation. The company's relationship with a faction is described by the reputation score. This score can be adjusted freely by the guide at any time based on the interaction between the errant and the faction. Once a reputation score has been set, the disposition of NPCs within that faction in an encounter will be set at the reputation score of the company with that faction. And this is similar to the relationship scores going from 2 hated to 12 loved, and then similar things once you get to the positive side of the faction. Accepted, liked, respected, loved, they'll be willing to do more stuff. If utilizing a reputation for a favor comes at a cost, the faction will perform that favor, but it will either lower the reputation score by 1 for the company, or the company must provide some commensurate service for the faction. A faction will do any favors below the type which comes at a cost freely, e.g. a faction which respects the company will do minor favors freely within reason. And Eric can also obtain, okay, so I'm going to kind of skip through here because it's basically the same as, it works the same as the relationships, but you're doing it with a faction instead. Same 2d6 table. There we're at the end of relationships. That was bonds. Uh-oh. We're coming to the end of downtime, which means we'll have a chance to go through and maybe we'll check out Ava's blog. Ava couldn't be here today or yesterday. She said she watched the stream from yesterday, and I'm sure she'll watch this later on. So, hello from the past, Ava. Unfortunately, work obligations kept her from being here live, so she can't correct me in real time. I am going to hope to get an interview with her at some point after this, maybe in the next couple weeks, so we can chat about it. Or maybe I'll wait until, because I know she's working on the official version of the rules that was kickstarted, that finalized everything. So maybe I'll try to time it with that, so we can go over all the stuff that's probably being tweaked and changed from these rules as they are now to what they will be if you get the retail or post Kickstarter version. All right, so right now we're on power. Expeditions. An expedition is used to extract resources from or settle an area. Before an expedition can be mounted, the area must be cleared by the company. Whether this is emptying all of the monster layers within a hex, negotiating a treaty with the inhabitants of that area, or obtaining title to settle lands from a ruler. Dungeon Master Masterclass says, most of all these 2d6 rolls can't be modified by more than plus or minus 3. I wonder if the author's trying to get GMs not to go crazy with modifiers, or they think 3 is special somehow. I think, and I'm sure we could any dice. Well, let's take a look. Let's go to any dice. I'm sure I'm going to have some crazy. Yeah, I got some crazy tables here. I'm going to, let's see, how can I do that? All right, I don't really want to, let me just copy this stuff because I feel like this is something I was working on for myself and I don't want to lose it. Hold on a minute. Riveting streaming as you're staring at any dice. But I feel like we kind of have a little bit of time these days, so, or this stream, I feel like. All right, let's clear this out. Let's see, output 2d6. All right, let's calculate. Any dice is an amazing tool. Cockatrace Nugget says, played by the Apocalypse rules only go to +3, I believe. Aha. Well, that might be it. All right, so there's 2d6. I'm just going to put in +1. You could look at well, let's do this. +1, +2, +3. So let's just look at it on the positive side. Oops, +4. Plus, oh, my 3 key's a little bit sticky. Okay. All right, so we want to get a 12, right? So, or let's say we want to get a 10 plus. So that's I don't know, about 14, call it 16% on your regular 2d6. So we go from 16% and then +1. Let's just go down to +3. It's then, say, 20, almost 28%. Hey, Terrence, we're looking at just a little sidebar on Dungeon Master Masterclass had mentioned why they kept it to +3 and -3 as the amount of the why Ava picked plus and -3 as her limits to the modifiers you can make on these 2d6 rolls. So I just thought I would take a quick sidebar to just take a look at it. So it looks like you go from something like 16% to 28-ish percent. So I guess what I would, and of course you can't get even, and then the chance of you getting under 6 is down to less than 10%. I think that well, one, Cockatrice Nuggets brings out, which is probably the case, that she pulled this from Powered by the Apocalypse, used that as her inspiration, and they might have a +/-3 limit. I think also looking at this, you don't want it to be, it's only a 2d6, so you're going to have, I mean, if the more modifiers you add, you can easily get to a point where you can only succeed, right? And they probably don't want people to pile on too much because you want room for those mixed successes and failures. Just because, on a 2d6, each single +or-1 is going to have a fairly, I would say, a significant effect. But that would be my guess. It kind of makes sense. So you go from like just under, you're basically almost doubling your, not quite, right? You're going from like 16% to 28%. So you're not quite doubling, but you're getting close to doubling your chance of success when you have +3. It's pretty good. Yeah, Cockatree says like almost, yeah, 55%. Yep. It was a pretty good little bump. I think the other thing is I can see it also making sense, and I don't know if this comes into play, but 3 is a nice number because you kind of have minor, moderate, and large. So you can think of it as a GM when you're trying to decide, well, how much do I modify this roll for? The players have piled up a bunch of stuff in their favor, and I can say, okay, well, okay, is it a small advantage they've got together? Is it a moderate or large? And so it's nice. It's like you have one of those for each thing. If I decide, okay, it's a large, +3, moderate, +2, small, +1, obviously 0. And then on the other side of the token, is it a small? Are they at a small disadvantage, moderate disadvantage, or a large disadvantage? So, okay, so my math is off on it. He's saying 55%. I was just calculating these percentages. That's why I was only counting from 12. Oh, yeah, sorry, my math was off. Yeah, if you start from 10, I was counting 12 and up. If you start from 10, yeah, it is like a 55. Yeah, this is what, almost basically 30, say 42. Yeah, it's like, I think even more than 55. And then Dungeon Master Masterclass says, so basically what the rules are saying is if you have more than 55% chance of success, you don't need to roll. I can see that idea, but I'm not sure I agree. I don't know if they're saying not to roll. I think they're just saying that's the max you can get. You at most you can have an above 50% chance of failure or success or failure. I think that's what they're saying. Now, the argument may be, well, that's not enough. I think maybe as a GM, you could say, all right, you've got so much in your favor that I'm not even going to, it's a fait accompli. I'm not even going to make you roll for it. It's a done deal. But I'm not sure that's what she's saying. I think she is saying that's just all. If you have a large advantage, you're +3, moderate advantage +2, small advantage +1, and then the other way. So you get everybody, you have to convince the king of something. You have the whole court agrees with you, but the king is still +3. Right? So I think that's what they're saying. Or that's my interpretation of the rules as written, and Ava can correct me later when she gets around to watching this, assuming she does. We were let's see, going back to expeditions. Before an expedition became mounted, okay, we got that part. Once the expedition has been cleared, an expedition can be sent to secure it via patrols. Attempting to secure one area, whether that is a hex or dungeon level, takes 1 downtime turn. Mounting an expedition to secure an area requires at least 1 mercenary squad to be deployed. I like that. Once an expedition has been deployed, roll 2d6 to determine its success. Add additional mercenary squads deployed. Additional mercenary squads deployed add +1 of the roll up to that max of +3 for fielding a full company. And then, right, the same 2d6 roll that we've been looking at. When securing an area, mercenaries are paid battle wages. In addition, each squad needs 80 provisions a month, as well as a secure supply route to convey said provisions. Provisions cost 10 pennies for a day's worth of food, water, and other sundries, and when purchased, reduces the settlement's available supply by 4 for the purpose of determining inflation. 1 provision takes up an item slot. Once an area is secured, mercenaries can set up and hold a base camp. While holding a base camp, mercenaries are paid regular wages and only need 40 provisions a month. A base camp can be held for 6 downtime turns, after which the mercenaries will start making morale checks to see if they continue to hold the area. Once a base camp has been established, the area can be surveyed, which requires a surveyor. Surveying an area takes 1 downtime turn and will reveal all the resources in an area as well as any hidden features. Once an area has been surveyed, labor efforts such as extracting resources or building estates can occur, so long as the base camp continues to hold. 1 laborer can extract 250 pennies value of resources per downtime month. They can construct buildings at the normal rate. Surveyors, laborers, architects, and any other retainers in a base camp need 6 provisions a month. I really like this a lot. Now, I might break it down and do things, but I really like the idea of, here are basically the steps. You want to take an area, here's what you need to do it. And once again, I like that it's pulling in these different hireling types and saying, hey, you wanted this, you want to guarantee that there's something hidden in here, and you just want to pacify the area, or pacify it, quote unquote, whatever, settle it, you make it free and open for business, whatever that means to you, hopefully in a good way, but potentially in a bad way. Then here's how you're going to do it. And also for NPCs, if I want to have a faction that's doing it, I have the steps that my faction would go through. They're going to need to mount an expedition. They're going to need to hire mercenaries. They're going to need to sit there. They're going to do all these things. And then if a party or another faction wants to disrupt that, we could see the kind of things that they would have to do to disrupt it. Hey, why would I ever want to hire a surveyor? Well, here we go. If you can get an area kind of cleared and you can get a surveyor, then that will reveal all the hidden stuff in the zone. So you don't have to spend time monkeying around in trouble looking for it. You will get a nice handy map or some other resource that will give it all there to you. Then if you want to create your domain, if you're interested in domain play, we can go further from there. It's, this is great too about just giving you a value. Okay, so if I get this place and I want to allow loggers to come in and do it, here's what I can maybe expect loggers to be able to take from there, and then we can figure out what my cut is and whatnot. If we're outside, say the lands of the local lord, so it's basically free and clear, maybe I can get some loggers to do this work. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'll get some cut of it, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. Surveyors, laborers, architects, and any other retainers in a base camp need 6 provisions a month. I think I said that. Okay. And now, this leads naturally into estates. Terrence says, say no more. Say no more, say no more, say no more, squire. To build personal estates, once the land to do so has been acquired, whether via expedition or some other means, the errant must pay for both the cost of construction of any buildings which make up their estate and hire laborers. Construction time is determined by the cost of construction. Each laborer can construct up to 250 pennies of value per downtime turn. Having an architect attached to a construction project doubles their rate of construction. Each building comes with furnishings of appropriate value relative to the structure. If the errant wishes to improve the quality of construction and furnishings, they may pay double the cost of the building. They may do this as many times as they wish, each time doubling the cost further. If the errant wants to add anything into the structure, which requires special craftsmanship, such as traps, secret doors or passageways, ornate decorations, etc., it adds 1,000 pennies to the cost of the structure per specific object. So if you want to make yourself a murder dungeon like that H.H. Holmes did in Chicago around the time of the World's Fair, you can do that. It's just going to add some more cost. Building special rooms such as a library, laboratory, or shrine each cost 5% the initial cost of the building and are of a quality of appropriate value relative to the structure. Infrastructure. Errants can found settlements or increase the size of existing settlements by making investments into infrastructure. To found a hamlet, the area it is to be built in must be secured and surveyed, and an estate of at least 2,000 pennies in value built from which the hamlet can be organized around. Founding a hamlet requires it to be constructed using the same process as constructing an estate. The cost of construction of a hamlet is 5,000 pennies. To change the settlement type of an existing settlement, no laborers are required. However, the settlement in question must have a route, either by land, water, or some other method between it and other prerequisite settlements. A tracker is set for the number of successes needed to advance a settlement to the next tier. The number of successes is equal to the tier being advanced. E.g., expanding a hamlet to a village requires 3 successes. Attempting to improve infrastructure takes a downtime action. To do so, an errant pays the base investment cost for the settlement type that they are attempting to advance to, and rolls 2d6 with bonuses for extra expenditures and established institutions within the settlement. Can we guess what's going to come next? These bonuses cannot cumulatively exceed +3, our magic +3 limit. An errant only needs to pay the base investment cost, plus any bonus expenditures, during the first attempt they make. Successive attempts to progress the track do not require payment. So we have that same 2d6. I'm not going to go through the table again. We've seen it enough. The base investment costs for each settlement type are listed below, as well as any prerequisites. So we're going basically from tiers, from hamlet to village to town to city to metropolis. I've been working on this for my own thing, not this, but kind of my own version. An interesting thing I was reading up, and I didn't know this, and I'm not sure exactly how much I'm going to enforce it. I kind of like the idea of it, is that hamlets and villages weren't so much about sizes, though. I mean, villages could be bigger than hamlets, but I guess the thing about hamlets, at least in this, I'm reading this book about, like 13th century, or might be earlier than that. It's like 11th century or 13th century. I think it's in England mostly or entirely, but then hamlets are kind of spread out, so they don't have a nuclear, a non-nucleated settlement. So you might have homestead over here, and then a little bit down the lane, there's another homestead. And they're kind of just thrown out there in the landscape. Whereas villages are nucleated. There's some kind of village center, and everything it creates this cluster around it, which I thought was interesting about that. But by their nature, hamlets don't necessarily have to be smaller than villages, but they're not going to be as large as villages, because I think just that denucleated type of settlement kind of just puts sort of natural limits. And then towns are about, and again, I'm reading from the book, and different things might be different, but towns are all about trade. And the one thing is, villages and hamlets, their function is about providing food and raw materials. So this is where you have your farmers and the people, all that kind of raw material type stuff, logging, farming, all that stuff. When you get to towns, the town is not about producing stuff, and the town may actually have no capabilities of producing stuff at all. What the town is doing is it's relying on surrounding villages and hamlets to provide food for it. Towns are all about your craftsmen and your trades. This is where your blacksmiths and your Fletchers and all these guys are showing up and living. And then cities are kind of just towns, just increasing in size and density, and then metropolis the same. Now, nothing says you'd have to play these rules to see if they are good, but I love that the system has these economic rules, if that makes sense. Yes, I agree. I mean, I always try to say, and I suppose I should just make the caveat now, that as much as I am enjoying these, and I agree, yes, I can't get the full impact of these things, because some stuff might read really well on paper, or in this case on the screen, and just not translate well to the table. Of course, it's going to be, there's a big, your miles may vary. Some players and some GMs might just go full bore into this and just love it. Others won't. Obviously, I can't speak to that. But yeah, there are a lot of concepts here that I appreciate. And the mechanics overall, with a lot of this stuff, being that players are going to do stuff to do something, or factions going to do something, and then you're using the same 2d6 roll, and it's just basically about you setting modifiers essentially for how to impact that roll between +3 and -3. It's pretty straightforward, and then we have a bunch of tables. I think the layout and everything with this doesn't do it justice, in the fact that we're always looking at things very isolated. If I had the book in front of me and I could flip back and forth, I could keep my finger or bookmark over here and I could flip back, or I could just go to the index and just see all the tables, right? It might be easier. On the screen, we're looking at things in these kind of clipped images, which don't help as well. But I do agree with you, nothing. And but I think that this is modular enough that you could certainly, if you really like the Errant framework, but you didn't love every bit of these systems, you could easily just pull those systems out. It seems, and I think the intention, she might have mentioned it, but if not, I do think the intention is for it to be pretty modular. You don't like the rules for Downtime, just don't use them. Institutions. An institution is any form of organization or long-term enterprise. A tea house, a ballet theater, or a cult are all examples of institutions. Institutions offer specific benefits to the errants who have invested in them. These are custom to each given institution. For example, investing in a stagecoach network might allow for more hirelings to be available for hire, and for henchmen of higher levels to appear in that settlement. Institutions can be categorized into 7 different tiers. To found a Tier 1 institution, an errant must have some kind of resource available that would allow them to begin operations. For example, if they wish to found a cult, they should already have a few followers committed to the cause. They can then spend 500 pennies, take a downtime action to establish the institution in the settlement they are in. Errants can also invest, partner in, or assume ownership of pre-existing institutions. To advance an institution up a tier, if the prerequisites for settlement type are met, an errant must describe their method for growing the institution. Then they pay the base investment cost of the tier they are attempting to advance the institution to, and roll 2d6, with bonuses applying for extra expenditures to a max of plus 3. Cockatrice Nugget says, that's my plan, is to chop this up and add it to whatever I end up running. Yep. I mean, that's usually my plan, which is about everything, is, let me grab this stuff out and add it to my kind of Frankenstein or Frankenstein of a game. And yet another 2d6 table. And now we have a table of the base investment cost for each institution tier with any prerequisites. So we have tiers are going to run from inconsequential to legendary, and they give some bonuses at certain levels. We have base investment costs and also prerequisites. If you want a legendary institution, it's got to be in a metropolis. Can't put a legendary institution in the middle of nowhere or, in Hamlet. Hamlet the Hamlet. Got to be somewhere big. To relocate an institution to another settlement, treat it the same as attempting to advance the institution a tier. If the roll is successful, the institution is now headquartered in the current location. The errants and guide can determine if it has relocated entirely or left some auxiliary or franchise branch behind in the old settlement. If an institution suffers a setback, the guide may choose to roll on this table for inspiration. And we get a D8 worth of setbacks. There it says, rest in peace, Hogwarts. Yep, indeed. Setbacks can be vicious rumors or sabotage or imitation institutions, attraction from criminals, unwanted legal attention, so on and so forth. Ooh, and here we get a rare sample. And here comes this first spammy message today by Decima Bennell. Thanks, Decima. May you rot in hell. Their murder wheel, a rolling spiked wheel that is a mobile vendor of weapons and armor. Converts into a discomfortingly small arena where customers can test their mettle. I could just see that rolling, I just a picture one of those. I always remember it was in the old, was it PS1 game, Twisted Metal series. I don't know which one it was. Was it Twisted Metal Black or Twisted Metal 2? There was a guy that rode in a big wheel and he was just in the center of it, driving it around. Now I see it with spikes all over it, but this one's big enough that you could just set it down and then put people inside to fight. Terrence, bust a deal, spin the wheel. Exactly. It's like it is a portable Thunderdome. And who doesn't want a portable Thunderdome? Now we get the tier and the benefits. At tier 1, it's got D6 shoddy weapons or armor pieces of rarity 3 or lower. Let's see, once per downtime turn. These have no resale value, as no respectable vendor would ever purchase items from the murder wheel. And then at tier 2, once per downtime turn, D4 survivors of the murder wheel can be recruited as henchmen of round 2. At tier 3, D8 average weapons or armor pieces of rarity 3 or lower can be taken from the murder wheel once per downtime turn. They still have no resale value. At tier 4, once per downtime turn, D6 survivors of the murder wheel can be recruited as henchmen of round 3. And then at tier 5, you get masterwork weapons, still have no resale value. And then 6, more survivors, but they're at a little bit of a higher renown. And then at 7, finally, once every year, one weapon or armor piece taken from the murder wheel will be a wondrous item. Hey, Brian Smith, happy you could join us. So there you go. You want your own murder wheel? These are the things you can get if you're able to get a legendary murder wheel. Domains. Having accrued enough power, a company of errants may find themselves rulers of a domain. This domain functions as any other polity in the game world, except for the important detail that the errants have direct control of it at the macro level, being able to set the code of laws, point NPCs to positions of power, and more. Domains can be categorized into 10 tiers. A tier 1 domain is immediately founded once an errant has founded a hamlet. Once a domain has been founded, it can be improved by investing money into it, so long as certain prerequisites are met. A tracker is set for the number of successes needed to advance a domain to the next tier. The number of successes is equal to the tier being advanced to. E.g., expanding a tier 2 domain to a tier 3 domain requires 3 successes. Attempting to improve a domain takes a downtime action. To do so, an errant pays the base investment cost for the domain tier they are attempting to advance to and rolls 2d6, with bonuses applying for extra expenditures and established institutions within the settlement. These bonuses cannot cumulatively exceed +3, as we know. And then, you only got to pay the cost once. Roll on your 2d6, take your success, mixed success, or failure. And then we get the table that we've been seeing variations of, which shows the tiers of the domains, their base investment cost, the bonuses, prerequisites, and benefits. Tier 1, you get nothing. No prerequisites, no bonuses, no base investment cost. Does have a benefit. You have a 1 in 6 chance of providing any mundane item or service. Tier 2 costs 10,000 pennies. You get a bonus for each additional 2,500 pennies you spend. The prerequisite is a domain must contain a ruler's estate that's worth at least 5,000 pennies. Benefits, cleared hexes up to 1 hex adjacent can be made part of your domain. That's cool. So you could start to spread your influence across the countryside. Tier 3, continuing on. I'm not going to read all these. I don't think I need to read all these, right? You got all the way, let's see, what if you get to tier 10, which costs 2,560,000 pennies. Gotta have a ruler's estate in it that's worth at least 1 million pennies. And you can get up to 5 hexes adjacent to your campaign. Brian says, having a domain level game going at the same time a normal party is going about their activities always sounded appealing, but hard to coordinate. Yeah, I tend to think of it as, yes, that's true. I tend to look at the factions as being kind of me playing domain play myself. The solo domain level play as my factions are going on doing stuff, and then I get to apply all that fun stuff to my party as they are interacting with it. But yeah, I can see how that would be challenging if I had a domain level party and say a lower level party. I think it might be, if it's the same players, might be a little bit easier because you can help with the accounting. It's kind of up to you, I guess, as a GM, how much of these meta currencies and levels and everything you want to make really transparent to the party and how much you want to keep yourself. I might err on saying, look, we're going to make it all pretty transparent. More going to be more board game style in a sense, where you're going to have your domain tracker board that's going to have all these little, you can move up the pin. Oh, I'm going down to 3. Oh, this is going up to 2. Like all these little things. And that way, as a player, you are going to have control of it, and I can hand off the accounting to you. And especially if you're doing something online where you have Excel and or Google Sheets that you can share, you can make it that it's pretty easy for everybody to see it, right? For checking, make sure all the things you're doing. You can use formulas, whatever, blah, 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 and then everyone kind of update it themselves. Cockatrice Nuggets asks, how do I do faction turns? First, hold on. Let me scroll up a little bit. Terrence says, a built-in solo game for GMs would be the perfect friggin' RPG. Million copy seller. I mean, I think we have that. Isn't that all RPGs already? There's so much of the stuff. It's just that game that we play by ourselves for 6 days out of the week until the 7th day where we have our session, assuming we play once a week. Brian Smith says, totally, I've just always had these friends that couldn't commit to a regular weekly game, but could make faction turn decisions and have that affect the world for the party. And then Cockatrice Nuggets says, how do you do faction turns? So I don't think there's one way to do a faction turn, Cockatrice Nuggets. It's really what you want to do is she uses downtime turns, right? But whatever a time scale works well for you. So just to break it down, right? Each thing that we do in the game tends to have a time scale associated with it. If we're talking in dungeons, it's minutes and hours. If we're talking wilderness travel, it's hours and days. You could probably think about, well, gee, what would downtime turns be? I don't remember. We could go back and take a look at how long a downtime turn is. But, we're probably looking at, weeks and months. So you would take your downtime turn or your faction turn, whatever, and say, okay, let's say I'm going to have 2 months is what I'm going to call my, we could call it a faction turn. We could call it a downtime turn, whatever we want. I'm going to say, just to kind of be consistent, if I'm breaking down my call it my dungeon, my dungeon investigation, it's 6 6 turns per, per hour, and my travel, it's 6 units per day, whatever. Then I'm going to say, in my year, I want to have 6 units. I want to keep it regular. So I'm going to say, okay, 2. I'm doing with a regular 12-month year. So 2 months is 1 downtime turn. Or you could say, if you wanted to do it in seasonally, you could say 3 months. So we have 4, each one representing a season of, that might be easier actually. So 3 months. And then you would say, okay, what is each faction doing over this 3 months, right? We're talking big picture stuff. Here are the things that these factions are doing. The faction is trying to locate a map to something. Maybe the party's going after 2. Maybe the party doesn't even know about it yet. We're not going to play through every little step of this faction doing it. We're just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put a difficulty on it, and at the end of the 3 months, I'll roll to see if they know the location of the map yet. Or it could be they want to influence a town. Maybe they want to assassinate a burger in the village, whatever it is. So you do that. As far as, Cockatrice is me personally, this is kind of me personally. Usually the stuff I say is the stuff that I do. So I'll come up with, hey, here's what they're trying to do. And it's something that I'm going to think fits in that 3-month time scale. If it's specific things that have lots of little steps, like finding a map, right? The whole purpose of it is so you can kind of abstract it all and say, you know what? I'm going to say, that over 3 months, they have so many operatives. I'm going to say that's a 10% chance over 3 months that they'll have done all the little things they need to do to figure out where Bilbo Baggins lives or whatever. And so I'll roll that. So yeah, so every couple months you just run these faction turns. For individuals, so for me personally, for individuals who aren't at the faction level, they'll be more on the same timeline as the party. So in the party's case, they kind of have this antagonist that's working against them. So I won't run them as a faction turn. I'll be a little bit more detailed with them in what they're doing or what the rolls are making, and I'll make rolls every session to see, like, did they manage to do this while the party's doing that? Depending on how long we play. Like if we play a whole session, but in game terms it's only a few minutes, like there was some massive combat, so it's a whole session, but game time is 5 minutes. I'm not going to make a bunch of rolls for the NPCs because it's just 5 minutes. But on the other hand, if they're taking days to rest and they're investigating, and it looks like we're getting through a week or 10 days of game time, yeah, I'm going to have the NPCs roll. But for factions, for the folks with lots of organization behind them, I'll just say, okay, in the spring, basically, what are they doing in the spring? What are they doing in the summer? What are they doing in the winter? And then that can, whatever they do, and then I can think about, well, if 2 factions kind of have similar aims, they can't necessarily both have it, so maybe they're conflicting, so on and so forth. Brian Smith says, right, like the party's going around adventuring and they see a mob marching from town A to town B, which is the result of another player saying they wanted to attack town B as their action. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, so if you're putting your players in terms of faction action, you might say, well, what are you doing with your domain in the spring or the summer? And like Brian Smith says, player Z in the summer says, you know what, I as ruler of town A, I want to take over town B, so I'm sending my mercenary band over there. Great. So that spring or summer, you would say, okay, part of this thing you're doing is you are gathering in a mercenary band. It takes time to hire them, takes time to train them, takes all that time. Then you're getting up your baggage supply, all this stuff. And then you would say, okay, by the end of the spring or the end of this season, you'll either have had the town or you've been repulsed. So then sure, sometime during the summer, whatever that season is, the party happens to be walking between A and B. Maybe they see the column of this mercenary band moving along the landscape. Why are they there? Because on a higher level, player Z sent his faction off in that direction. Cockatrice Nugget says, I'm always on the hunt for a good faction minigame. I mean, there was Birthright you might look into, Cockatrice Nuggets. I haven't looked at it in forever, so I don't know if it's aged particularly well, but that was literally a game built around having a faction play layer as well, on top of kind of the adventuring elements in a campaign. I'm just trying to see what else do I want to read here just to wrap this up, because I believe this is the last section. Or I think I had some stuff on character classes. I'll try to zoom in there really quick. Let's see. We got some roles of, okay, mundane. Okay, so I'm just going to read about the domain armies are made up of citizens who will take up arms to protect their home, not career warriors. They can be kept out in the field for a number of months equal to the domain's tier +2. Being rulers of a domain provides errants the status of dignitaries in lands where their domain's sovereignty is respected. If an errant has left the immediate territories where their domain is known. Test the domain's renown as you would an errant, treating its tier as its renown. Brian Smith says, ooh, I'll have to check that out. I haven't looked in the Birthright. Yeah, it was for, Birthright was for 2nd edition, I believe. I think you can find it digitally up on drive-thru. I can dig up the exact link later, but you can find it. I've been meaning to try to eBay to find one. Find a hard copy box so I can look at it again, but I haven't. All right, so I remember one thing that I think Ava said that I missed was something about errants. I missed something, so let me just try to. Did I miss these classes? So I'm just going to go through these classes fairly quickly. First, we had the violent, and I'm not going to. So I apologize because I know I'm running towards the end, and I really want to get through this so that I can wrap this bad boy up before, because I have to break off tomorrow for the OSR Reddit roundup as usual on Friday. So I don't want to forget everything that I've done, but when I come back to this on Monday, so I'd like to get this finished. So, okay, we have the violent, which I'm guessing is a fighter type archetype. We have renown. That's kind of your level. Your number of attacks rises with your renown. You get some feats as you go up, and you also get more dice as you go up. Your damage die is a D8. You can get some extra attacks. For feats, you have a number of combat die, which are the same size as your damage die. These combat dice can be used to perform feats. The number of feats you can use in one initiative turn is equal to the number of attacks you can make. At Renown 1, you have 2 combat dice. You gain an additional combat die each time your Renown increases. Combat dice replenish after a night's rest. And then we get some feats. Smite, Grit, and Sprint. And then you can learn more at different levels. We get stuff like Avenge, Cleave, Command, Exert, Goad, Intimidate, Protect, Resist, Strategize, and Surge. So this is kind of a cool way of getting. I mean, these are really similar to your feats. These seem like they're more toned down than, say, your 3.x vision of feats, but they're there for you. Terrence says, minigame idea, DM bingo cards. Let your players unlock extra dangerous encounters or extra special treasure by taking random actions. Yeah, it's kind of like Twister, right? Like RPG, like Twister. Like you spin the wheel and then it goes like run screaming into the next room. And if they do that, then maybe they get something better. We get the Deviant, which let's see, Deviant. I'm gonna say the Deviant is kind of a rogue-ish. Jetons. Those are those chips, right? If I'm remembering. A counter or token, a jeton. Sneak attack. Aha, I knew it. So they get a D6 damage die. As they go up in renown, they get more proficiency points, and they get more of those tokens. They can sneak attack folk. They get 2 proficiency points. A proficiency point may be spent to gain expertise in any of the following proficiencies or a proficiency of your own devising, with approval from the guide, of course. And the proficiencies that are listed, stuff like anatomy, awareness, engineering, fitness, lore, sleight of hand, speechcraft, stealth, survival. Kind of similar to the specialist from Lamentations, which I liked a lot. A little swig of blackberry spindrift for the working man. And then those jetons. You have a stack of jetons, which you can use in 2 ways. You can spend jetons to reduce the difficulty value of checks, including saving throws related to your proficiencies. Each jeton reduces the difficulty value of the check by 1. You can spend jetons to make a wager. When you make a wager, make a claim relating to one of your proficiencies, such as, I can climb that sheer cliff. I know how to disarm this trap. I've packed just the thing we need. I've already stolen their weapon, or I bribed that guard yesterday. You can make any claim so long as it at least flirts with the realm of possibility. Roll a d10 with your chance to succeed being the number of jetons you spend. E.g., if you spend 5 jetons, you would have a 5 in 10 chance of success. Terrence says he keeps reading it as Jetsons. I can believe it. I'm surprised I haven't made that goof myself. If you succeed on the roll, your claim is true. If you fail, you suffer the consequences decided upon by the guide, which will usually take the form of a counterclaim. When you make a wager, you may ask the guide for a devil's bargain. They will also roll a d10, though they will keep the result hidden from you. When you roll for your wager, you may choose to either take either the die you rolled or the die that the guide rolled to determine if you are successful. If you choose the die the guide rolled and are successful, you regain a number of jetons equal to the difference between your roll and the guide's. However, if you choose the guide's die and fail, the consequences will be far worse. You regain all your jetons at the start of a downtime turn. I kind of like all that. That's a really nice push your luck kind of thing. Uh-oh, Nightbot. Nightbot got you. Nightbot doesn't stop the spam, folks, but gets people for for I don't even know what the infraction was that Nightbot. Oh, it was a spam. No, spamming caps, but it was just 2 double A's. It wasn't even, the whole thing wasn't capped. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. All right. Now the Zealot. We're thinking a cleric type, right? So we get, again, escalating renown levels, which we get more favor, we get more relics, and we get more miracles. D6 damage die. Covenant, you pledge yourself to a covenant which grants you blessings and the power to perform miracles. Favor, you're standing with your covenant is represented by your favor, which you can spend to power your relics and empower your miracles. Any spent favor is regained at the start of a downtime turn. So it's kind of cool. So they have, some people get stuff back. It's kind of that fast. It's a little bit like that fast recharge, slow recharge kind of thing, right? In 5e, it's that sort of, oh, you get it at a short rest versus a long rest. Here it seems like some are overnight or long rest, basically, and some are downtime, which I like. Relics, you can attune to relics, mystical tools consecrated in the name of your covenant. At renown 1, you may attune to 1 relic. And then you can attune to more. Any item can be consecrated as a relic, provided it meets the following requirements. A blade must have at least an edge or a sharpened point, and a wand must have neither. A shield must offer some form of protection, and a cup must be able to hold liquid. It takes 200 pennies and takes 1 travel turn to consecrate an item as a relic. You may unattune from a relic, but doing so requires it be consecrated again to re-attune. Each relic also grants a special ability. Blade. When you deal damage, you can spend favor to inflict a condition on your opponent. That's cool. Wand. When a character makes a check, you can spend favor to reduce the difficulty value of that check by an amount equal to favor spent. Shield. When you or an ally takes damage, you can spend favor to impair that damage a number of steps equal to the favor spent. And then finally, Cup. You can spend favor to grant a number of allies equal to the amount of favor spent immunity to a condition. That is cool. Ryan Smith says, listen and understand, Nightbot is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever. Very good. Hey, Michael Bean, if you're out there, just props, shout out to you, Michael Bean. I feel like you're a very underrated actor of the generation movies I grew up on. So many classic Michael Bean moments. I mean, Terminator, The Abyss, Tombstone, Navy SEALs, though I can't stand that Navy SEALs movie. But he's great in it. I'm sure there's even other ones. But yeah, really good. I don't know. He just kind of, and then just sort of dropped off. I don't know. It'd always be interesting to talk to some of those guys and just to know, out of curiosity, what happened? Like, what was it? Roles you took? Did you decide to do TV or stage? You just decided to take a break? Oh, Aliens he's in? Brian Smith says he killed it in Tombstone. Absolutely. Tombstone's such a fantastic movie, too, with a great backstory to it as well. And I mean, I just mean in the making of it, not even the actual story. All right, finally, the Occult, as we head into overtime. Sorcery. You could cast sorceries. You begin play with the 4 grimoires in your possession whose sorceries you've already learned. A sorcery may be cast by directly reading it from a grimoire once per day. Doing so takes 2 actions during an initiative turn. Each day, you may also prepare a certain number of sorceries, which allow you to cast them without referencing a grimoire. Doing so takes 1 action during an initiative turn. You may prepare the same sorcery multiple times. So that's interesting. So you can use your book, read from it, cast. Takes 2 turns, but you can do it as often as you want, or you can have it memorized, in which case you don't need to cast it, but it's faster, but I think you can only cast it once per memorization. So you're getting a little bit of a mix. And it's also interesting because there's a little bit of, well, do I want to carry my books around with me? Let's say, as far as assuming you've camped outside the dungeon, you can leave stuff with hirelings, or you can take it into the dungeon. Do you want to take all your grimoires with you and risk losing them or something happening? Or do you want to just do your memorization, or both? What do you want to do? It's a cool decision point. If a sorcery has an ongoing effect, its duration is determined by your sorcery duration. When you cast a prepared sorcery, you may make a mind check with a difficulty value equal to your stabilized value plus your encumbrance. If you succeed, you may safely cast the sorcery again. Okay, so there's a chance you might actually get to keep it if you've memorized it and cast it. If you fail, the prepared sorcery has become unstable, and casting again risks miscasting. To avoid miscasting, you must succeed on a mind check with a difficulty value equal to d20 plus the number of times that sorcery has been cast since becoming unstable. Maleficence. You can invoke Maleficence. Any number of prepared sorceries can be made unstable in order to make an attack which deals damage to all within an area, with a saving throw allowed for half damage. The range and area of effect of your Maleficence is the same as that of a sorcery. Your Maleficence deals 2d6 damage for the first prepared sorcery made unstable, plus an additional d6 damage for each additional prepared sorcery that is made unstable. When you reach Renown 3, and every third time your renown increases, thereafter the damage of your Maleficence increases. Your Maleficence is unique, and the manner in which it deals damage should be defined by one-word descriptor, e.g. lightning, fire, necrosis. So that's cool. I think the key thing is it doesn't say any enemies. It just says all. So, which I appreciate, because I've said before, I don't like how easy it has been. They've made it to edit your friends and allies out of your spell blast zones. I want you to have to think about where you're positioning, and I want you to have to make the choice of, I could take down these guys, but I might take down my fighter with them, but I got to do it, kind of thing. Let's see. Terrence says, last thing I saw Michael Bean in was the slimy merc guy in Mandalorian. Oh yeah, yep, I remember that. And then Brian Smith says he makes a good slimy merc. He does. And he makes a good guy too. That's the thing, is he can modulate that kind of thing from sort of the good kind of merc like Reese, and then I forget whatever his name was in Aliens, and then like in the Abyss and Mandalorian, kind of the slimier side. And then finally, for the Occult, we have Retort. When an enemy casts a sorcery or some other magical effect, you may use a retort to cast a prepared sorcery in response. Prepared sorcery cast this way is automatically made unstable. You may only use one retort per initiative turn. When you reach Renown 3, and then every third thereafter, the amount of retorts you can use in initiative turn increases. So you can basically counterspell, but it doesn't seem like the counterspell in this case is preventing the other spells. Just like you get a quick like, have at you, like you lightning bolt me. Well, I magic missile you, kind of thing. That's cool. All right, so that is it. We went a little bit into overtime, but we made it through, I believe, all of Errant, though I await Ava to tell me, nope, you missed X, Y, and Z. I hope you guys dug it. I hope you enjoyed this long, detailed, but I think fulfilling journey through Errant. I like a lot of the stuff in here. I will be combing through here to pick bits out and have to go back and remember things that I thought, oh yeah, that's inspirational. That triggered things for me. I don't know when, so it went through Kickstarter. It's already been Kickstarted. That's finished. I don't know when it will be released. I will definitely work to get Ava on here for an interview so she can talk about it, give me further corrections, but I'm thinking now that it might make more sense, instead of bringing her on right now, maybe bring her on when she's done with the rules, just that way from a scheduling thing, it kind of makes sense to bring attention to the final rules. That'll bring it back to my attention. Then she can speak to that, as opposed to if we're talking about this version of the rules, which is going to be already somewhat out of date and will be even made more out of date when that one comes out. So I'll probably try to work with her to figure something out around whenever that comes out. So it might be a little ways. I don't know how far down the line she is or how far she is in the process. So we'll see about that one way or another tomorrow. OSR Reddit Roundup as usual. I got some stuff in the works. I've tentatively scheduled in maybe 2.5 weeks an interview with the authors of Mork Borg. I don't know if you saw, I posted that on the community tab and also on my forums. Really looking forward to that. It'll be at an odd time in regards to the regular streaming schedule. It'll be at 3:30 because they're free. They're in Central European time, and they were free kind of later in their night. So just ends up being 3:30 Eastern time. I will definitely talk about this more, and when we get closer to, I'll get the scheduling down. But if that holds true, I'll be talking to them. There is a Mork Borg Terrence is talking about Cyborg. Heck no. Is Cyborg a thing, Terrence? You're just making a pun because I haven't read Morkborg yet, so there could very well be Cyborg in it. Oh, but I was gonna say there is a Morkborg supplement coming out. I actually already have it. Free League sent me a digital copy of it, but they have the whatchamacallit, the blah 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 press injunction or whatever is until next month. So I don't know if I'll be able to act. I don't know if I'll be able to ask them about that or if we can talk about that, or that'll have to wait till after the whole thing. But I will definitely obviously ask them a lot about Morkborg. You will probably see in the next week or so, I will be scheduling some shows to some streams to read through Morkborg since I have to read it to prepare for them. So that's coming up. I've also got a module from GUI Cube, who I just heard of recently. It's 5th edition or 5th edition compatible. I've heard really good things about GUI Cube and this, so I'm really excited to take a look at that. And I also have a solo indie RPG that was sent to me. It is, I forget what it's called. It is Blurred Lines by Guillermo Gontijo, if I'm pronouncing that. Inspired by Giallo horror cinema and Michelangelo Antonioni's Blow Up. So that seems like it'll be really good. Also, I don't have it on the schedule yet. That's coming up as well. I also have some other folks I'm trying to sync up interviews with, in addition to also getting GUI Cube, someone from there to come on. As usual, I'll try to go over, where's that one? Here we go. You can see the cover art. Get someone from GUI Cube. Terrence says the Robin Thicke RPG. So got a lot of stuff going on, but I gotta get back to it. So Bryce Smith says, sounds good. Appreciate the efforts of the Spindrifts will work, man. Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to Spindrifts recently, and I'm out of apple cider, so that's what I'm drinking. Anyhow, I got to get to it. Everyone here, have a great rest, or not, even if you're not here, have a great rest of your day, night. Give a thumbs up on your way out if you don't mind. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever. Game on, and talk to you later. Ciao, everybody.